They didn't choose you by accident. You weren't targeted because you're weak. You weren't singled out because you're naive. You weren't drawn into chaos because you're broken. You were chosen because you have something they don't. Something that shines quietly. Something that moves through rooms with calm. Something that doesn't need to overpower others to feel real. You were chosen, Orfesi, because you have light. And in a world that confuses dominance with power, that kind of light is rare and threatening. Not to the wise, but to the ones who seek to feed off others. We call them by many names: emotional manipulators, spiritual leeches, narcissistic charmers, energetic predators. But what they all have in common is that they find the open-hearted, the self-reflective, the empathetic, and treat them like resources, not relationships. They're not always cruel. Sometimes they're sweet. They come with compliments, insight, affection, even spiritual language. But what they really want is access. Access to your attention, to your energy, to your sense of guilt, to your desire to understand them. And if you're not prepared, if you haven't learned how to protect what makes you radiant, you'll start to dim. Not all at once, but quietly, one accommodation at a time. Stoicism doesn't talk about light in mystical terms, but it teaches you how to own your inner world so that no one else gets to dictate how you feel, who you are, or what you allow. And today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We'll explore why certain people target the kind, the open, and the aware, not to love them, but to feed off them. We'll dive into why your strength is mistaken for softness, why your light is both a gift and a magnet, why setting limits is the most spiritual act you'll ever do. This episode isn't about becoming cynical. It's about becoming anchored. Because your presence isn't for public consumption, and your soul isn't for rent. It's time to learn why you were targeted, so you can learn how to never be touched that way again. Let's begin. The glow and the gate. Why light attracts darkness. Your presence radiates something, even when you're silent. Call it peace. Call it stillness. Call it clarity. Whatever name you give it, others feel it, especially those who don't have it. There's something about a calm, steady, open soul that draws people in. And not just good people, because your light is a signal. And like any signal, it attracts everything. Think of a flame in the dark. It draws those seeking warmth, but it also draws moths. And sometimes it draws predators who see that flame not as something to admire, but as something they can control, consume, or dim. The Stoics didn't talk about spiritual light as we do today, but they knew the power of presence. The kind of presence that doesn't need to prove itself, that doesn't rush to win arguments, that lives in alignment and quietly exposes everyone who isn't. And that kind of presence, it triggers people, especially those living in chaos, projection, or hidden hunger. They don't always know why they're drawn to you, but on some level they sense you won't bite, you'll listen longer than most. You carry something still, something steady, something real. And that realness, to a disordered mind, it feels like a mirror. A mirror they want to control, not understand. Because your light, your glow, exposes their own shadows. So what do they do? They don't attack it directly. They move in subtly. They compliment you. They tell you you're safe. They call you wise beyond your years. And as you start to open the gate, even slightly, they step inside. Not to meet you, but to mine you. They begin studying your softness, not to honor it, but to find where it bends. They don't hunt weakness. They hunt access. And your light, when not protected by discernment, becomes an open door. This is where Stoicism gives you language and armor. It teaches that virtue without boundaries is not strength, that the inner fire must be watched not just for how it burns, but for what it allows in. As Epictetus wrote, you must protect your mind just as you would your home. So ask yourself, who's drawn to you when you are most clear? Who lingers when you're quiet? Who becomes uncomfortable when you start to choose yourself? because often your glow isn't the problem. It's the unguarded gate it shines through. And today, we begin learning how to guard it, not by dimming the flame, but by strengthening the door. Predators don't hunt the weak, they hunt the open. You've probably believed at some point that the reason you were targeted was because you were weak, too soft, too trusting, too inexperienced. But here's what few people will tell you. Predators don't look for the weak, they look for the open. Weakness doesn't give them what they want. Openness does. They want access, not resistance. They want receptivity, not defense. They want someone who believes in goodness enough to keep giving chances, long after the pattern is clear. And often, the people they choose, the ones who see the best in others, the ones who say, maybe they didn't mean it, the ones who know what it's like to be misunderstood and don't want to become the one who misunderstands. That's not weakness, that's armor depth. But depth without discernment is fertile ground for manipulation. The Stoics understood this better than most. They didn't preach distrust, they preached filtering. Seneca warned, if you would be loved, love with judgment. That means not every invitation deserves a yes. Not every sob story deserves access to your center. Not every person who's broken deserves to be rebuilt by you. But predators, especially spiritual ones, count on you not knowing that. They don't test your logic. They test your mercy. They push gently first. I don't normally open up like this. You just feel so easy to talk to. I don't know why I'm telling you all this. And because you're open, like you let them in. You think, maybe I can help. Maybe I'm meant to be here for them. Maybe this is what compassion looks like. But compassion without caution is an invitation for chaos. And once they're in, they don't bring healing. They bring hooks. Hooks made of flattery. Hooks made of need. Hooks made of carefully placed dependency. And before you realize it, you're no longer choosing the relationship. You're managing it. Afraid that pulling back might shatter them or make you the villain. That's not connection. That's capture. And it happened not because you were naive, but because you were available. You see, predators are rarely interested in people who are hard to read, hard to move, or emotionally distant. They're drawn to warmth without armor. But warmth is not the problem. It never was. The absence of a Panos Stoic shield is. Because Stoicism doesn't kill your openness. It refines it. It teaches you that giving must have shape. That presence must have protection. That love must come with limits. So from now on, stop asking, why was I so easily used? And start asking, what made me so reachable? And what do I need to guard more wisely? Because your heart isn't the issue. It's how unguarded it was in a world that doesn't always come with good intentions. And the sooner you accept that truth, the faster you get your power back. Not by becoming cold, but by becoming selective. The spiritual magnet, when your energy feeds others. You've probably met them. People who feel calm when you're around. People who say, I don't know why, but I feel better after talking to you. People who reach out when they're in crisis, but disappear when they're stable. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's unconscious. But what's happening underneath is this. Your energy feeds them. Your clarity calms their chaos. Your groundedness gives them something to orbit. Your silence, even that, becomes a space they pour their emotion into. And you walk away tired. You wonder why you feel foggy after a 2-hour phone call. Why your day derails after just one message. Why someone else's presence makes your nervous system tighten. But you can't quite explain it because they were nice. This is what I call energetic feeding. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's not even visible. But it's real. And if you're not aware of it, you'll mistake it for connection. The Stoics might not have used the term energy, but they deeply understood influence. They knew that who and what you allow into your mental space affects your moral state. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, and thoughts are shaped by presence. If you spend enough time with someone chaotic, you start to normalize chaos. If you spend enough time absorbing the emotional weight of others, you begin to forget that you have a weight of your own. And that's where spiritual predators thrive. They look for the ones who are open, the ones who listen well, the ones who don't interrupt, the ones who feel things deeply, even when unspoken. Because those people are energetic providers. And to someone who has no internal regulation, your stillness feels like oxygen. But you're not a supply, you're not a battery, you're not an emotional sanctuary for every lost soul who stumbles into your light. You are responsible for your state, but not for maintaining everyone else's. So here's the Stoic application. Pay attention to who seeks you out only when they're drowning. Pay attention to how often you feel emptied after giving. Pay attention to the shift from voluntary support to silent expectation. Because the moment support becomes obligation, you are no longer engaging in compassion. You're participating in energetic imbalance. And while Stoicism won't teach you to cut people off blindly, it will teach you this. Let your outer circle be wide, but your inner court sacred. You can love, you can support, you can offer your light, but only in ways that don't cost you your center. The predators don't just want your attention. They want your stillness, because it makes them feel momentarily whole. And unless you know how to preserve that stillness, you'll become their favorite place to hide from themselves. But you weren't born to host everyone else's confusion. You were born to guard what makes you them and give it only by choice, never by manipulation. The psychological target map. Why your traits make you accessible. Predators, especially the subtle ones, don't choose targets at random. They may not even realize they're hunting, but they know how to find people who make them feel safe, supported, important, without demanding anything in return. And that's where you come in. Not because you're weak, not because you're unaware, but because you carry certain traits that, unguarded, become entry points. Let's map those traits, not to shame them, but to understand how they can be used against you if you're not awake. Trait 1, high empathy. You feel things deeply, even what others don't say. You sense pain beneath smiles. You intuit stories behind silence. This is a gift, but to someone manipulative, it means you'll decode my behavior so I don't have to explain it. You'll justify my damage so I don't have to change. Unchecked empathy becomes self-abandonment. Taurus. Trait 2, strong inner standards. You want to do the right thing. You hold yourself to high levels of honesty, kindness, loyalty. That's rare, but it can be twisted. To a manipulator, it means you'll stay longer, try harder, and question yourself more than you question me, because your integrity becomes a weapon turned against you. Trait 3, the fixer reflex. You're the type who wants to help, to uplift, to heal what hurts. That's beautiful. Until it becomes your compulsion. Predators sense this. They know that if they share a little pain, you'll offer a lifeline, even if it's your last one. And just like that, your care becomes your captivity. No. Trait 4, guilt, sensitivity. You feel guilt quickly and deeply. Even imagine disappointment shakes you. So when someone uses, you don't care anymore? I guess I was wrong about you. After everything I shared with you, you cave. Not because you believe them, but because the Kaelian idea of hurting them feels unbearable. And that is emotional leverage. Trait 5, fear of being misunderstood. You've been labeled before. Too sensitive, too much, too intense. Now you work overtime to explain yourself, prove your intentions, maintain harmony. This makes you easy to access and hard to protect, because you'd rather over-explain than risk being seen as cold. But here's what the Stoics remind us. You are not disturbed by what happens, only by your opinion of it. That includes other people's opinions of you. These traits aren't flaws, they're virtues that need structure. Stoicism doesn't teach you to suppress them. it teaches you to own them with discipline. So your empathy serves wisdom, not martyrdom. Your kindness holds boundaries. Your guilt becomes reflection, not submission. Think of your mind like a fortress. These traits are the beautiful gardens inside. But even a garden needs a gate. And the person who learns to protect those traits without hardening them becomes the kind of soul that we can't be owned. That's not selfish. That's sovereign. And when predators realize you see the pattern, they stop seeing you as prey. Not because you changed who you are, but because you finally stopped offering free entry. And that, my friend, is the beginning of your Stoic defense. The Stoic shield. Why philosophy is a form of protection. So far, we've explored why predators target the open. We've seen how your empathy, your clarity, your quiet light can draw in people who aren't looking to honor you, but to harvest you. Now comes the most important question. What protects you? Not walls, not cynicism, not pretending to be someone you're not. The answer is philosophy. And not just any philosophy, but one that's been battle-tested against case, deception, and emotional invasion. That's where Stoicism comes in. The Stoics didn't walk through life unaffected. They were not detached robots, void of feeling. They were deeply engaged in the world, but inwardly disciplined. And that discipline, that's what kept them untouchable in all the ways that matter. When someone tried to provoke them, they didn't collapse. They didn't rush to defend. They observed. When someone tried to shame them, they didn't spiral. They turned inward and asked, is this judgment valid, or is this projection? When someone tried to lure them with flattery, they didn't melt. They reminded themselves, I know who I am. I don't need to be told. This is the Stoic shield. It's not armor that hardens you. It's awareness that sharpens you. It doesn't disconnect you from others. It reconnects you to yourself. You want to know why Stoics were feared by manipulators? Because they didn't react on cue. They didn't need approval. They didn't offer endless access. They didn't confuse being misunderstood with being wrong. And that made them dangerous to anyone who hoped to use guilt, pressure, or niceness as a way in. Your version of the Stoic shield won't look like a toga and a scroll. It will look like this: a pause before you reply, a breath before you explain yourself, a soft no without elaboration, a confident silence when someone expects you to cave. It's in how you sit in discomfort without rushing to fix it. It's in how you let others feel disappointed without rushing to rescue them from it. It's in how you remember, I am not here to be liked. I am here to live by principle. That's not cold, that's clarity. In clarity, practice daily becomes a barrier, not between you and others, but between you and manipulation. So if you've been wondering why predators keep finding you, it's not your heart, it's not your warmth, it's the lack of filter around it. And Stoicism gives you the filter. A set of internal questions that keep your soul aligned. Is this choice rooted in truth or fear? Am I giving from overflow or depletion? Is their discomfort my responsibility or their growth edge? Every time you ask, you fortify the shield. And one day, without force, without defense, without any bitterness, you simply become unreachable to the people who used to own you. Not because you've built walls, but because you've become too whole to be harvested. How to recognize the emotional hook, where they try to pull you in. You've felt it before, that sudden emotional tug, not from what someone said directly, but from how it made you feel afterward. Your body tightens, your thoughts start racing. You question yourself, even though nothing sounded aggressive. This is the emotional hook. And it's how spiritual predators get in, not through logic, but through leverage. What kind of leverage? Not force, not facts, but your own values turned against you. Let's look at a few of their favorite hook points. Number 1, your compassion. They say, you're the only one I can talk to. I just don't feel safe with anyone else. Without you, I don't know what I'd do. And now your compassion is activated. You feel responsible. needed, indispensable. But here's the Stoic warning. You are not helping someone if you're destroying yourself to do it. Number 2, your guilt reflex. They hint. I guess I was wrong about how close we were. Most people wouldn't have done that to me. Don't worry, I'll handle it somehow. They don't accuse, they imply. And your guilt fills in the blanks. You start trying to make up for something that was never yours to fix. But a Stoic asks, is this my burden or their expectation disguised as hurt? Number 3, your longing to be seen. They mirror your inner world. They echo your language. They make you feel deeply understood. It feels like resonance, but it may be replication. Because predators study what you crave, then reflect it back to you just enough to disarm your defenses. But if it feels too perfect, too soon, pause. As Marcus Aurelius said, look within, let not another's words disturb your peace. Number 4, your need to be good. You want to do the right thing. You want to be honorable. You want to leave no one behind. But when someone weaponizes that, you become easy to guilt, easy to manipulate, easy to keep, just close enough to drain, but not close enough to confront. And that, to a spiritual predator, is ideal. So what do? You don't overanalyze every sentence. You don't become suspicious of kindness. You simply ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to get me to do? Am I being invited or emotionally maneuvered? Do I feel expanded by this interaction or obligated? If the answer smells like pressure, even dressed in politeness, you are likely staring at a hook. And a Stoic doesn't panic. They observe, they pause, they recenter. Because once you see the hook, you no longer bite. And the moment you stop biting, the predator starts losing interest. Not because you've become mean, but because you've become unmovable. Reverse the pull, how to reclaim your energy without war. When you finally see the game, the manipulation, the hooks, the quiet conditioning, the first instinct is often emotional. Anger, shame, the urge to confront, the desire to cut off, burn bridges, make them see what they did. But that instinct, while understandable, is not Stoic. Because true power doesn't come from reaction. It comes from redirection. You don't need to fight a predator to reclaim your energy. You just need to reverse the pull. Let's walk through what that actually looks like. Number 1, step out of the performance loop. You don't need to explain your boundary. You don't need to defend your clarity. You don't need to soften your tone to keep their comfort intact. Every time you adjust your truth to keep the peace, you lose a piece of your power. The Stoic way? Say less, but mean more. Number 2, break the unspoken contracts. Every manipulator relies on a contract you never consciously signed. You'll always You'll never say no. You'll protect their feelings, even at your expense. To reclaim your energy, you must break that contract. Not loudly, but with silent action. Change your pattern. Withdraw access. Respond slower. Choose where your presence goes, instead of giving it by default. That's how the pull begins to reverse. Number 3, reclaim time, then attention, then emotion. Most energy drain begins with time. They call, they text, they show up, they vent. You stay. So first, reclaim time. Then reclaim your attention. Stop obsessing. Stop rehearsing conversations in your head. And last, reclaim emotional authorship. Their sadness is not yours to carry. Their confusion is not yours to fix. Their disappointment is not your signal to return. Number 4, replace reaction with ritual. When you feel the pull, don't argue. Pause. Breathe. Do something simple. Walk. Drink water. Repeat a truth. Example. Their urgency is not my emergency. I don't owe energy I didn't consent to give. This is not mine. Each ritual is a thread, pulling you back to yourself. Number 5, Respond once, then let silence speak. If you need to say something, say it once, then let silence do the heavy lifting. Predators feed on repetition. They drain you by drawing you into endless emotional litigation. You don't owe rebuttals. You owe your soul room to breathe. And Stoicism reminds you you always have the option of having no opinion. No opinion equals no access. No access equals no drain. The most powerful shift, not revenge, not exposure, not even closure, it's becoming unavailable to their reach. Without anger, without noise, without fear, just stillness. The kind of stillness that cannot be baited. The kind of stillness that doesn't flinch when guilt is thrown like a net. That stillness is your shield. And once you live inside it, you don't need to fight anymore. Because nothing gets in unless you let it. Becoming spiritually unavailable without closing off. There's a myth that in order to stop being drained, you have to become cold. Cut everyone off. Shut down your emotions. Withdraw from the world and live behind armor. But that's not Stoic. That's trauma in disguise. The Stoic doesn't harden. They hone. They refine their attention, their energy, their presence, so that what was once wide open becomes selectively sacred. This is what it means to become spiritually unavailable. Not unavailable to love, not unavailable to real connection, but unavailable to those who treat your soul like a faucet, only turning toward you when they're thirsty. Let's get clear. Spiritual unavailability doesn't mean being guarded. It means being grounded. It's a shift in posture, not personality. Here's what it looks like in practice. You're kind, but not rescuing. You're generous, but not open-ended. You're present, but not permeable. You show up without offering your entire nervous system for rent. You listen without absorbing. You help without handing over your peace. Because availability without intention is how people end up, enslaved to their own empathy. Predators, spiritual, emotional, or energetic, aren't looking for kindness. They're looking for access without resistance. And when they meet someone who's spiritually unavailable, they lose interest. Not because you're mean, but because your inner door doesn't open on command. Stoicism calls this state self-governance. Marcus Aurelius lived in a palace surrounded by noise, power plays, emotional chaos, and yet he protected his mind like a monastery. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. That's your goal, not to live behind a wall, but to cultivate a space inside yourself that no one else owns. How do you know you've become spiritually unavailable to the wrong people? You no longer feel the need to justify your no. Their silence no longer scares you. You can sit with their disappointment and still sleep well at night. You are not shutting people out. You're inviting only those who know how to enter without invading. This is what it means to close the leaks, to become energetically precise, to preserve the part of you that used to say yes out of fear and now says no with peace. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself. And from that place, you're not unreachable, you're just untouchable. To those who only knew how to take, you were chosen because of your light. Now stand in it. They didn't choose you because you were weak. They chose you, Chorus, because you were radiant, because you were soft in a world that rewards sharpness, because you cared when others shut down, because you stood still when others postured and performed. You didn't attract harm because you were broken. You attracted harm because someone saw that you had something they couldn't generate themselves. A centered presence, a deep empathy, a selfless spirit. And instead of learning from it, they tried to consume it. But now you know, and knowing is power. Stoicism was never about escaping pain. It was about meeting it with truth. The obstacle is the way, Marcus Aurelius wrote. And this experience, this pattern, this wound, this awakening, is not a detour. It's your initiation. You were targeted because of your light, but now you stand because of your structure. You've begun to rebuild, to observe instead of absorb, to detach without disconnecting, to serve without being owned. That is evolution. And now when someone tries to pull you into their emotional gravity, you remain anchored. Not out of defiance, but out of deep self-respect. The kind of self-respect that doesn't need to explain itself. So if this episode stirred something in you, if you recognized yourself, not in the victim, but in the awakening soul, here's what I ask. Comment below. I protect my light. Let that be your declaration. Let it echo beyond this screen. Because you no longer need to explain why you're different, why you feel deeper, why you pause before giving yourself away. You are not too much. You're finally becoming too aligned to be manipulated. And if this message brought you home to something you almost forgot, like this video, share it with the version of yourself or the friend who always gives, always shines, always wonders why they're the one left tired. Subscribe for more Stoic truths that anchor you in a world that keeps trying to pull you apart. Until next time, stand in your clarity, walk in your discernment, and protect what is quietly, powerfully yours, your light.